it's time to do the finishing touch. And this step will help you give the work another boost and create some extra depth. And for that, there is a really nice technique that I'd like to share with you. So as you remember, in one of our first tutorials, we made a color wheel together. We chose the 3 primary colors and we mixed 3 secondary colors. Now this color wheel is important for the technique that I'd like to explain to you. If we want to create some extra depth in our work, we will use a contrasting color. And what that means is, if for example, overall your work has a green tone, like the chart has, you would choose a color on the opposite side of the color wheel. So it's somewhere here around red. Important to notice, however, is that we will be working mainly in shadow areas. Therefore, we will choose a cooler version of the color that we want for our final touch. For example, if you made the red currant, which overall has a reddish orange tone, you would look on the opposite side of the color wheel and you would end up at a sort of green tone. Important to note is that we will be working mainly on shadow areas, and therefore we would like to choose a cooler version of the green as an accent tone. Looking at the red currant, I would like to point out to you some areas that could use this final touch with the color on the opposite side of the color wheel. It's the darkest areas. So for example here, this area is between a red currant, between the stem, and it's far back. So it's super dark and it could use extra depth. Also maybe a shadow over here. It's not so dark in the reference, but it would make the currant stand out more. So we also think in terms of contrast. Maybe here where we see the darkest colors on the leaves, maybe a little bit here on the stem. Here as well, this is furthest back, so we also have to use our principle of things that are close by and further back. Something with cooler tones appears to be further backwards than something in warmer tones. We could use some of the contrasting colors around these little ends on the red currants to give them a little extra depth. We could use a purple as a contrasting color for the green and a more blue-green tone as a contrasting color for the red, but you can also do an in-between, sort of a bluish purple tone for both. I think that would work for this image to keep it all together and make it a whole. Make a combination of looking at the reference and using your common sense. Looking at the picture, you could easily see where it could use some extra depth and some more pronunciation. For example here, making the currant that is behind slightly more blue, the one in front pops out and comes forward. You can also use this step to clarify some lines and some outlines especially. This makes the currant in front stand out much more and gives a little bit of shadow that is received from the small stem coming down. And we work our way around the painting like this. Keep in mind the direction of the curvature of the currant, for example like this. There is no fixed rule when it comes to adding this contrasting color, if you ask me. It's very much a matter of taste, and it is comparable to hitting the contrast button on your phone after you've made a picture. So some people like crazy big contrast and others prefer to have it a little bit more subtle. But all I know is you can create some real nice effects doing this. Also vary in the level of saturation of your contrasting color. Where it is obviously lots darker, you can use a more saturated version than when you're, for example, giving a little bit of a shade to a currant. Like there and here. Nice, right? And we can do the same for the leaves. Oftentimes, like where the leaf starts, it's a little bit darker. Where it bends, where one part bends in front of the other, and just below the veins. Sometimes when you do negative painting, the veins end up quite light. You could give them a wash using this same shadow layer, just a very transparent layer that will take off the hardness of this light color. This here obviously requires some more shadow. It's not very realistic at the moment, so we could help it a little bit. And using a diluted version, we can make sure that this inside receives some shadow from the back. Something like that. Even the little stems here could do with some shadow. It's not necessary, but sometimes it's nice to create that extra bit of variation. Try and experiment a little bit with where you want to place this contrasting color. I like to use it here as well to clarify the edges of my leaf, of the little stems, and even of the currant in one go. So people oftentimes think that creating shadow you need a brownish or a black-like color, maybe gray, but you using a purple-blue color now actually proves that the shadow is created by actual colors. And using this you can push some areas further back since this color is much cooler, and you can pull some areas forward since they receive some extra contrast. Like here, for example. Well, I think our work is done here. So after this finishing touch, there's one more tutorial and a thank you note, so I'll see you there.